$300 million sounds like an awful lot of money. How was the $300 million chosen?
Yes, well, this is a measure, as you say, open space helps define who we are in the Bay Area and is in the nation. So Mid-Penn Open Space is a special district that was created by the voters in 1972. And so the taxpayers have been supporting us for the last 42 years. And for the first time in these 42 years, we are coming to the voters and asking for more funding.
So you said it was created in
1972 by a vote.
Why? And what is the purpose of the Mid-Peninsula Open Space District?
It's a great question. 1972 was a time when it was not quite the Wild Wild West, but there was a great deal of development taking place on the peninsula, a lot of uncontrolled development. And a lot of sprawl was happening, not just here, but in LA. And people were struggling to define what the future of the Bay Area was going to look like. So people were battling at the city councils. So the Mid-Penn Open Space was created by a number of people, including Nonette Henko and Mary Davey, and many other people who are still around today, because they were tired of fighting it battle, lot by lot or space by space. And they said, isn't there something more proactive we can do? And there was a precedent, which is the East Bay Parks and Open Space area. It's to create a special district by the vote of the people to secure a very small piece of your property tax to pay for common regional open space.
Okay, now I mentioned 3 counties, and so this is a measure. The Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District covers Santa Cruz County, Santa Clara County, and San Mateo County.
Yes, although a very small part of Santa Cruz County. So it's largely part of Santa Clara County, part of San Mateo County, and actually I just have 5 voters in Santa Cruz County.
5 voters? Okay.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
So, but it's largely a by county
All right,
district.
well, we do have a video that gives us a bird's eye view of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, and it's coincidentally called a bird's eye view. So the crew will let me know when that's up and we can see it.
Okay.
So the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District covers land along the coast.
It covers, it basically protects the green belt. So the Santa Cruz Mountains, if you stand anywhere in Silicon Valley and you look up towards the hills.
You see it.
Yes, you notice that a lot of it is not covered by houses, which they would be if we were down in Los Angeles or many other parts of the country.
Yes, I think we're ready to see it now. Is it ready? Yes, we're ready to see it. So this is a bird's eye view of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. And I assume there's sound with that.
Hello, I'm Doug McConnell. Well, I've been exploring the Bay Area all of my life, and for many years in television and in other media, I've been telling stories about our magnificent parks and open spaces that have been saved by dedicated and visionary people and are now freely accessible for all of us to enjoy. Along the way, I had a chance to see quite a bit of the diverse and spectacular Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. Mid-Penn, as it's called, is huge, covering more than 62,000 acres in San Mateo, Santa Clara, and Santa Cruz counties, with more than 200 miles of popular public trails, giving everyone plenty of room to roam in all kinds of ways. And Mid-Penn doesn't stand alone. It's part of an even larger mosaic of protected and interconnected open spaces right in the midst of one of the busiest metropolitan regions in the nation. All of this together is a rare and grand gift of nature in an urban area. And from the ground, it's hard to grasp the sheer size of it all. Recently, my crew and I had a tremendous opportunity to get a bird's eye view of how large and lovely this natural living landscape truly is. And we really were blown away. We flew and photographed around it for several sensational, eye-popping hours, and thought you might appreciate the next few minutes of what is, quite literally, a short highlight reel of our aerial adventures. Oh, we hope you settle back and have a great flight and maybe gain a renewed appreciation, just as we did, for how lucky we are to have these natural treasures right in our own backyard. We begin our aerial odyssey above Mid-Penn's Ravenswood Preserve and Cooley Landing at the edge of the bay in East Palo Alto and just south of the Dumbarton Bridge. We turn north and west, flying over Palo Alto and Stanford, above Interstate 280 and the Filoli Estate, skirting the green foothills that many local residents have worked hard to preserve over many decades. Just north of Filoli, we change course towards the west, cross Highway 35, Skyline Boulevard, and head towards the coast. Looking south as we go, we notice few, if any, structures and roads as far as the eye can see. It's hard to believe that this rugged and natural landscape, much of it in the public domain, is only a handful of miles from our busy urban lives. Soon we come to the familiar San Mateo County cliffs and coast, extraordinarily dramatic and beautiful at this elevation and in this light. As we track south, we turn inland less than a mile to circle one of Mid-Penn's new agricultural lands, leased by a local family to raise grass-fed beef for local consumption. Then we swing out to the shore one last time above San Gregorio State Beach, before flying east inland along Highway 84, with unobstructed views of the extensive open space legacy that thrives here thanks to the public support of Mid-Penn and other public and private partners and agencies. Almost before we know it, we're circumnavigating Windy Hill, high above Stanford and Palo Alto. In 1977, Windy Hill was Mid-Penn's first acquisition and open space preserve. Now Mid-Penn owns and manages 26 preserves in 3 counties, 24 of which are open free of charge to the public from dawn to dusk every day of the year. Turning our sights southward, we see Mid-Penn's Montebello Ridge and Preserve above Mountain View, and then fly for many minutes over a seemingly endless and stunningly dense forest, much of it thick with redwoods, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Its scale and wildness looks like landscapes I know in the remote far north of California. Yet amazingly, this is just a stone's throw from Silicon Valley. Turns out, ancient trees and 21st century technologies can be good neighbors. Eventually, the Lexington Reservoir, west of San Jose, comes into view. We cross Highway 17, and soon enough, we find ourselves approaching one of the most famous landmarks in the South Bay, Mount Ummanum. During the Cold War, this mountain was an Air Force radar station that housed an entire community. Now, Mount is part of Mid-Penn's Sierra Azul Regional Open Space Preserve. Mid-Penn is in the process of removing all of the abandoned military structures you see below, except the 5-story radar tower, which will remain for now. When finished, the top of Mount long closed to the general public, will be open to us all. On our way back north towards eventual shutdown, we see Los Gatos below, and the homes between there and Saratoga that climb toward preserved open spaces in the hills. Finally, we fly abeam the Stevens Creek watershed and the San Andreas Fault, before angling a bit to the north and the east, and crossing Mid-Penn's Montebello Ridge and Preserve. Looking north towards the green foothill backdrop of our modern communities, then passing over Stanford, and ending where we began, above Ravenswood and Cooley Landing, we're struck by the wisdom and dedication this region has shown to create and grow such an immense open space legacy. It's a generous and far-sighted gift. It's ours to enjoy for now and to nurture and pass along for generations to come. To find out more about the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, please visit our website.
Well, it seems that that is really expensive territory.
It is. One reason why it's $300 million.
Well, you'll have to explain it a little bit more, because one of the opposition groups, the Silicon Valley Taxpayer Association, says that it'll put the public $300 million in debt plus interest to turn unused pieces of land into unused pieces of land. So How was the $300 million arrived at? And what is it for?
The $300 million was arrived at through a very thorough public process. So basically what happened is that Mid-Penn was celebrating its 40th anniversary, and kind of thinking back on its history, the fact that, yes, because of everyone's support, we've acquired 62,000 acres, and so what's next? Should we buy a lot more land? Do we open up more? Do we concentrate more on opening up the land we own? Because about half the land that we own is actually not open to the public right now. Or do we spend more money kind of restoring watersheds and protecting the habitat? So we actually had a very extensive visioning process where we went twofold. One was science-based, so we basically brought a lot of the best scientists together to look at what we have and also what we still don't have. So everything from wildlife corridors to what are the most important watersheds to protect, what endangered species are there, and what do we need to do to make sure that they don't keep going down in number. And the other was public. So we reached out to about 2,000 people. We also had a community advisory board that helped us look at it and define what do people want and where do people want it, and that ended up in 25 defined projects, which comprise basically the expenditure plan for.
So you're saying there was a public process where the public weighed in.
Absolutely.
What was this, at meetings and online, or how did the public weigh in?
All of those. Yeah, we had online, we had focus groups, we had many meetings, and it was an iterative process where we showed some potential projects, and then we asked them to choose from between them.
So the public chose projects.
Yes,
and the scientists. Yes, go on.
Well, they also chose their priorities. I mean, do they want? And what they told us was, number one, that they do want more access. They want more trails and more access to the open space that we own, as well as some potential new ones.
So that access would involve what? Biking, hiking?
Yes, biking and hiking are the two main ones. Equestrian. There's other things like geocaching and such, which.
What's geocaching?
Geocaching is this activity where people hide things in a certain area, and people use GPS to track it down, and it's a little game.
Oh.
But it's a little incentive, especially like for families or it's not family, people of all ages do it.
So the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association says, for instance, that you had mentioned having roads and more trails.
Are we building too much?
The group says, yes, they said that you will be taking up trees, grasslands, animal habitats would be torn from the ground for tractors and heavy equipment to come in to put down those trails and some of the development that you're talking about to make the park more accessible.
Yes, well, let me respond to that. I mean, there's two parts of it actually. One is, first you said the money would be turned to use taking open space and keeping an open space.
Yes.
But that's not quite true, because one impetus for this district in the first place was Nanette Henkel going up to the foothills, and it was open space at the time. But guess what? There were a lot of no trespassing signs, so you could gaze upon it, but you couldn't go on any lands without.
Was it
privately owned?
It was privately owned.
100% private. Not 100%, but there's a few state parks and county parks here, but overwhelmingly it was privately owned. And so what our district did was really help to acquire the regional space and open it up to everyone. It's free and accessible to everyone who can come out and enjoy it.
So there are two things. You're saying that taking unused pieces of land and making it unused pieces of land is not true.
the difference is it's in public ownership and it's open to the public.
Okay, but it's still unused.
Yes, that's right. And there are cases where it will continue to be unused because actually we have three legs of our mission. One is to acquire land and protect it in perpetuity. The second is to restore the land and protect the land. And the third is to open the land for ecologically sensitive access, recreation. So there are pieces of land that will never be open to the public because it's too sensitive, that there's endangered species there, and we don't want people walking around there.
All right, now this group says that you'll be making parking areas, you'll be making welcome centers, so you'll be tearing various things like the trees, the grasslands, animal habitats up.
Well,
for tractors and heavy equipment to come in to create the welcoming center. And
well, believe me, of the 62,000 acres that we own, that will be a very, very tiny percentage. And the purpose, of course, is to allow people to come in and open it.
Okay, so can you give me an example? You mentioned that there are various projects. How many projects?
25.
Give us an idea for the audience who might not have any idea.
Sure.
What would one of those projects consist of?
Yes. Well, one of them you just saw the video about Mount Amanam. So one of the projects is to further develop a trail to really build out part of the ridge trail there. There's a ridge trail which encircles the bay, and really one of the best parts of the bay of the ridge trail there will be at Mount Amanam. I think it's going to be the second highest peak on the ridge trail. And so if you go up there, it will build a trail. There'll be kind of places where you can sit and enjoy the view. And the view is going to be spectacular. I've been up there, and you see all the way down to Monterey Bay and beyond. I mean, you really get a 360-degree view of the entire Bay Area. So that's one.
All right, go on. Talk about some others.
Sure. And let's see. Another. There's going to be several more kind of trails from the skyline down to the coast. So one is.
So skyline starting where?
Like one is going to be like the Prisma. There's one that's called Prisma
Above
to the Sea.
San Francisco?
No, it's not in San Francisco, but. It's
you said Skyline Boulevard.
Skyline Boulevard.
Like Portola Valley.
Oh, it's near like it'll be part of the next maybe a little north of El Corte Madera Preserve on Skyline. I don't know if you know the Bella Vista restaurant. It'll be a little bit north of there.
Near what city?
La Honda. I don't know what. It's probably unincorporated
So it would
county.
be. You mentioned La Honda all the way down. How far?
There'll be trails that will go all the way, take you all the way down to the coast.
Now, I think I read someplace that there would be trails where one could walk around the Bay Area, connecting.
Yes, there's two trails. There's a ridge trail, which kind of you walk along the mountaintops, so you have the sweeping mountain views, and another is the Bay Trail, which will allow you to walk. And actually, so parts of both of them are part of the 25 projects.
Now, you mentioned for the $300 million, this will extend how many years?
It'll be, it's actually not defined, but probably 20 or 30 years.
20 or 30 years.
Yes, it's more defined by the maximum of $300 million that we're being authorized to issue. And I did want to emphasize that even though it sounds like a lot of money.
Oh, it is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
It's more than just sounds like. $300 million is an awful lot of money.
Yes, but it's spread over a large number of people and a large area. So that for any one taxpayer like you and me, the average tax burden is going to be, it's a property tax, so it's calculated to be $21 per person. I mean, $21 per year for any one property.
A total
of
$21
per year.
Per year.
That's right.
Each year.
Each year.
For about 20 years. Now, will it increase at all?
No, $3.18 is absolutely the maximum that's allowed. So and it's not inflation based. So
it's not.
It's not. Yeah. So in some ways, there's some incentive for us to build projects as quickly as we can. And as much as, we can't build all 25 projects at once, of course. It will be kind of staggered. But
well, the critics say that there is interest on this money. The interest rate's unknown. And while there is a cap of 12%, who knows what it's going to be in the future?
Well, it's using the same principles as when you and I buy houses. I mean, we could save up money and end up buying our first house at age 50 or 60, or we could borrow money and try to buy a house earlier and enjoy it. And when you buy earlier, the land usually costs less as well. So that's the same principle working here, which is that by issuing bonds and borrowing money at, hopefully, I think we're estimating at about 3.5% at the current market, that we would borrow money and buy the land today before land cost goes up again. So I think it makes sense for the taxpayer.
Well, if you think about the projects that you're talking about, and you mentioned that there are at least 25 projects. Mm-hmm. They all won't be done at one time. Who is it that's going to decide when the projects will be done, how much money will be spent on each project, and over what period of time?
Yes, I mean, I would actually, I tell the voters to go to their ballot book, because actually it does list those 25 projects, so they can take a look at them. And your question about who will decide, I mean, the board with our staff's assistance will make that decision, but we will also be listening to the Citizens Oversight Committee that will be formed. So that's a very important part of what we're promising the voters as well.
Well, the board, the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space Board, is in a position to make some critical decisions. So who's on the board, and how were board members selected?
Yes, there's 7 of us, and we each represent 7 different wards of the. So I represent, for example, part of Palo Alto, Stanford, Los Altos, and somebody represents most of Sunnyvale, and they are publicly elected. There'll be elections coming up this November. Half the board is elected every 2 years. So I mean, 2 years, half the board comes up. So it's staggered.
And so when you represent various constituencies, are you in touch with those constituencies for the length of time that you're on the board? Or as the representative, do each board member simply make his or her own decisions?
Yes, it's up to us. But I used to serve on the Palo Alto City Council, so I know how important it is to stay in touch with constituents and communicate with them. So, like for example, for the Measure AA, which is of course the measure that we're talking about, we went to almost every city council and presented to the council and asked for their endorsements. And Palo Alto City Council gave us their endorsement. Mountain View, many of the city councils have given us an endorsement.
Was there a city council that did not give an endorsement? That was asked to give an endorsement? Every council that we asked, I believe, did give us an endorsement. Yes. And Board of Supervisors, is it something that went before the 3 county Board of Supervisors?
I have to take a look. I believe all the supervisors individually endorsed it. I don't remember if the board voted as a body to endorse it. But
so you're saying the supervisors in all 3 counties that are
2,
involved?
Well, at least 2.
Okay,
yes, because there's
Santa
only 5
Clara
people
and
in
San Mateo. How is it there are only 5 people in Santa Cruz County?
I think it's because we went into a small part of the Santa Cruz County for the preserve, and so we had to draw the line that way. But it is but for the counties, I mean, it's yes. So I was going to mention that if you go to the yesforoPenSpace.org, you'll see a list of all the endorsements, and they go from the League of Women Voters of the Bay Area, and both counties and actually all the chapters in this area went for it. They're big supporters of Measure AA. The Silicon Valley Leadership Group also supported us very early on. The Chamber of Commerce in Palo Alto, and so very broad spectrum.
So I mentioned the Silicon Valley Taxpayers Association.
Yes.
Are there other groups that you could think of that are opposing Measure AA?
I think they're the only organized group that's raising.
And I mentioned several of their arguments. Is there an argument that the opposition might have that is being taken seriously?
No, I mean, I have answered, I've been knocking on doors in Palo Alto, and in general, everyone is very enthusiastic about it, and because they see the value of open space. But for example, I had a question about, well, why not do it as a pay-as-you-go instead of
$300 million.
Instead of yes,
one lump.
Instead of issuing debt and paying it off. And so, my response there is, we talked about it a little bit earlier about, it's similar to buying a house, but my response is that we did try to do pay as you go for many, many years. I mean, that's why it's been 42 years and we've never come out to the public. So
but it seems that it's worked for 42 years.
Yes. Okay, good point.
So why change it now? If it's worked and you've been able to acquire land and make the changes to open up spaces, why now?
Excellent question. And the reason is the 62,000 acres. Obviously, when we started in the most of our first 4 decades, our laser focus was on acquiring land. Before it got grabbed up and developed, I mean, that was our overwhelmingly first priority. But now we do own 62,000 acres. We're a huge land manager, and you can imagine, we can't just. It does require patrolling. It requires maintenance. It requires. And we have the responsibility of managing that 62,000 acres. And you can imagine if we all have a 1/10 of an acre or a 1/4 of an acre if we're lucky.
So how is it managed?
We do have a staff of open space technicians and planners, who work with who get the permits necessary to do everything from watershed restoration. Creeks. There are creeks, especially on the San Mateo coast, which are some of the last habitats for like coho salmon. One of the last populations of this very beautiful snake called the San Francisco garter snake is also on the San Mateo coast. And so our staff really works hard to make sure that the invasive species don't come in and overwhelm the native species.
It's the staff that does the work.
Yes.
It's the staff that will be carrying out all of these projects. Is any of this work ever contracted out?
Sometimes. In general, our staff, we have an excellent staff that does it.
Well, let me just say one of the biggest concerns when you talk about big organizations, maybe even government, is the management of the money. So how can the public be assured that that money is going to be spent the way the district is saying that it's going to be spent on all of those projects and the approximate amount of money?
We are so, we're just so diligent about, there's 7 of us on the board. I'm a Stanford MBA. There's a Harvard MBA on there. There's many past business people, and Larry Hassett, who was the owner of the Palo Alto Hardware, is on the board. So there's a lot of very experienced people on the board, and we're all very hyper.
Well, people are always concerned about corruption, about mismanagement. For example, one of the biggest
you don't have to worry about that with us.
is Bell, California, where supposedly there were experienced people and they enriched themselves.
Yeah.
So how do you assure the public that in spite of the MBAs or that their money, the bond issue, is going to be managed properly with the greatest of financial oversight?
Well, we're a Brown Act organization. Obviously, all our meetings are open to the public, and it's really through the public coming to our meetings. Of course, obviously, we could be, if they're unhappy with what we're doing, you know, they can vote us out anytime. So it's that public accountability.